Hey there, I'm Syama, CEO of Scaling Retail, and I'm really excited to chat with you today about the use and efficacy of hiring and maintaining a public relations firm. I do feel like PR is such an integral part of how we start to take a look at building brand, primarily because publicists do this incredible thing that most of us just don't have the time to do, which is be friends with people that we maybe don't want to be friends with, right? I mean, when it comes to the job of getting out there, being in the field, maintaining relationships, knowing what is culturally relevant, being able to slot products into culturally relevant conversations, being able to maintain those relationships and build them over time, that is something that is very hard to do, certainly if you don't have the appetite for being social, and certainly if you're very new in launching your business. Very hard to maintain a relationship or get a relationship of 10 years when you're only 6 months into launching your brand. So how do we hack relationships, right? And knowing that relationships are kind of a key core component to building business, hacking it becomes really important. And so I believe publicists and PR agencies really do have the great opportunity of being able to shortcut access to key editors, shortcut access to influencers, and help you get social proof and credibility sooner and faster than if you were doing it on your own. So I'm a huge fan of PR. But why did PR get such a bad reputation to begin with? I do believe that in the last 10 years, we started to see the rise of the PR firm that started to kind of stuff their offerings with lots of things that didn't really belong in there. PR agencies that are now doing social media, that are now doing advertising, that are now managing your web presence, that are now managing, let's say, your newsletters. All of those things may or may not be core competencies of that company. So you definitely want to do your due diligence. And I do believe that it was simply a lot of these publicists that were launching these other types of assets where brands would come on board, they think they were getting something full service, but really these PR agencies were just trying to capitalize on being able to provide this new type of service and product without really having domain authority in those arenas. So hiring a PR agent because they're great at public relations is exactly what you should be hiring them for. Keep them in that box of that because chances are that's what they do best. And when you're launching a business and hiring and capacity building, it's all about hiring the right people who are going to be able to do their best work with you. It's not necessarily about hiring someone where you can stuff a bunch of things into that maybe their agency does not have the core competency around. Okay, so now that I've proven my case of why publicists are so important, let's talk a little bit about how to find them, what you should be looking for, and quite honestly, what you might actually have to spend in order to get someone that's probably halfway decently good. Because after all, you don't necessarily need a publicist to go out there and send a bunch of emails to people who they don't know. You could have an assistant, right? Or a VA or someone else sit down and write a bunch of emails to people that they don't know. So your PR agent, the very first thing you want to make sure is that number one, they have relationships. You want to take a look and see where are the places that their clients have received press, and then subsequently, what are the outlets? What are the channels that they are thinking are going to be appropriate to your business model? Now, if a publicist comes to you and says, hey, I think that you need to be on Martha Stewart, I think you need to be on Reader's Digest, and you're like, but hey, wait a second, I'm more of a W magazine, coveteur, higher fashion brand, then obviously your publicist is not in the right arena with you, and you guys are not on board in terms of strategy and how you see the brand flourishing. So you definitely want to figure out where does that PR agent have those contacts, where is it that they've already received press for their clients, and what is their strategy, and how do they actually think that they can help cultivate and build your brand? Now, the second thing is that you want to find out, have they worked with brands of your size? It does no good to you if they've actually been retained by a huge company, right? Because obviously that company already garners some sort of media presence and social weight. It is much easier to get PR for a brand like Oscar de la Renta than it is to get PR for a brand that's just launched a few months ago. So you want to make sure they've worked with businesses of your size to be able to achieve and see results. Also very important. Next, you hopefully will get an introduction to your publicist through a referral. Either that's a referral from someone else who's used them before, or that's going to be a referral from a consultant or an agency like Scaling Retail, for example, that has worked with numerous PR agencies and that can really advise on the best kind of publicists you should be looking for, specific to your brand and specific to your market. So make sure that you're getting introductions if you can, because that's ultimately going to help you cut through the mess of people who are saying that they do PR, but really they don't, right? And when someone says they do PR and you fork over a huge retainer and you don't get results, guess what? You've now been soured on the experience of working with the PR agency. Even though working with the PR agency might still be important to you, you've now been turned off of that marketing strategy. So important to kind of take a step back and say, what have my experiences been in this arena? How might I be able to shift and change how I choose and hire my next publicist? Now, how much should you be spending? On the low end of a PR agency, you're looking at somewhere around $2,500. On the higher end of a PR agency, you could be looking at about $20,000 a month. It really depends on the scope of work, the level of service that you're hiring for, and exactly what those relationships and services are that are going to be integrated into that contract. So, you want a publicist to help you with putting together an event for editors and influencers. If they're producing the event, I'm sure that's going to cost some money for production. If they're doing influencer outreach, they're doing all that seeding and gifting, hey, guess what? That might also cost money if they're shipping out all the goods and if they're managing the entire logistics aspect of doing your seeding and influencing marketing. If they're simply just sending out emails, helping you to connect to editors, and you're doing all of the heavy lifting on the back end, well, guess what? That might charge you a different fee. So really have an idea of going into that conversation. What are the kinds of activities and activations that you're looking to do? Has that agency ever done that before? Can they actually help you with that? Sometimes I find that early on and even later on in our careers, we're so eager to find a good fit that sometimes we don't ask the questions that we're concerned about not getting the answers that are right for, or that are going to tell us to go look somewhere else because we're tired of doing the work. And when it comes to farming out something like PR, where you really have to have a lot of trust and faith in what they're doing, because again, hard to measure those tangible results early on, you really want to make sure that you know what you're getting yourself into and what those expectations are. Now, when it comes to those expectations and it comes to setting up that arrangement properly, do it quickly, do it up front. Hey, this is what I'm looking for, right? An ideal target placement for me would be in this publication, right? An ideal type of event would look like it would be here, have these kinds of people in it. So make sure that you actually have some ideas of what you're looking for and then be able to pitch with them and ideate with them. What do they think about that? How do they see your brand, again, evolving over time? What is that brand narrative and story? So budgets will fluctuate. Right? You need to know, do you need a publicist that's going to be local in your domestic market, which might be, let's say, in Texas because you really want to pitch to that market? Or is it actually really important to you to have a publicist that has a New York and LA office because you really see yourself as a national brand? Or maybe you have a publicist that's going to be New York and LA and in London and in Paris because you see yourself having more European based. Or perhaps there's an outlet in China, or maybe there's one in India. So as you take a look at getting global press, it's very important that people have a nexus and a hub in that domain that they're looking to build that authority. Pitching internationally and being domestically located, you can do that definitely a lot harder than being connected. And what you're paying for in PR are relationships and connections and authenticity. Cannot tell you how many people have told me who are on the PR side, on the editor side, that say, hey, when you do these cold pitches and you kind of send one email and blanket it to everybody, not only have you shot yourself in the foot in terms of getting pitched and featured that time, but also all of a sudden people go, that person did not put that much thought and integrity into doing the PR on their own, right? They're not cultivating the relationship. So, parting words here. If you decide to take on PR on your own, be slow, be methodical, be deliberate, be personal. Take your time, do it well. This is a long-term game. You are not building relationships so you can get a press hit tomorrow. You're building relationships so you get a press hit in 6 months, in 6 years, and maybe in 10 years, right? You're looking to cultivate over time. Postscript. Editors, writers, publishers, move around. Someone's not going to be at Vogue for forever. They might go from Vogue to Elle. They might go from Vogue to Coveteur. They might go from Vogue to Harper's. They might go from Vogue to starting up their own publication. You don't know where people end up. So treat your editors, treat the writers, treat everyone in this certain chain in terms of being long-term relationships. Over time, guys, you will build the relationships and authenticity of those PR agents who've been doing it for decades, and you'll be able to do so with a personal connection that will span years. All right, guys, that's it for me. As you're looking to build your marketing strategy, looking to connect with PR agencies that are going to be the right fit for your brand, make sure you sign up for a consultation with us where we can go over cohesive marketing strategies and execution. Send us an email at hello@scalingretail.com to find out more. I'll talk to you guys soon. Thanks. Bye.